Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. As you can see from the title and thumbnail of today's video, today we're going to be talking about Darryl Cooper, the host of the Martyr Made podcast, and a tweet he recently made where he falsely claimed that the Philistines were under the oppressive rule of the Israelites during the time of Samson. I kid you not. This is as ahistorical as it gets. It's literally the other way around. Now, how did this even come up? Well, when you go to the tweet in question that he put out, you see that he's responding to a Joel Berry tweet from December 22nd, 2024, where Joel wrote, Rahab, a Canaanite prostitute, by grace through faith in Yahweh, was chosen to be a blessed matriarch in the lineage of Christ. No matter who you are or what you've done, it's not too late for you. Jesus was born to save sinners. Let him forgive you. Let him save you. To which Darryl Cooper responded, I've never been able to bring myself to honor Rahab, who, as her final act of prostitution, betrayed her people to destruction. It's much easier to honor Delilah, who continued to fight for her people, the Philistines, even in captivity under her abusive foreign husband, Samson. Oh boy, that second sentence, oh boy, there's so much wrong with just that one sentence. Basically, he portrays Delilah as a noble woman who was trying to save her people from the oppressive reign of Samson and the Israelites, and claims that Samson was abusive and that Samson was her husband. Well, let's start with the obvious. The Israelites did not rule under the Philistines and hold them in captivity. It was the other way around. Judges chapter 14 verses 1 through 4 says, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. His father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among all our people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. She's the right one for me. His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. So, at the time of Samson, the Philistines were ruling over Israel. In other words, Israel was in captivity under Philistinian occupation. Literally the opposite of what Darryl Cooper said. Plus, if you read the Old Testament, you'll see that the Israelites, the Jews, were under Philistinian occupation pretty much the entire time, all the way up until King David. It really wasn't until King David that they started to get out of Philistinian oppression. Now, when Darryl Cooper makes the claim that the Philistines were in captivity under the oppressive rule of the Israelites and their leader, the abusive Samson, who apparently was married to Delilah, well, that's a complete inversion of history. The Philistines were horrible people. I mean, they're on the level of Frieza from Dragon Ball Z in terms of cruelty and just downright wickedness. And to prove it, let's see how they handled Samson trying to marry one of their own. Judges 14, 5 through 20, and we'll go into chapter 15 as well, says the following. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as he might have torn a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. Some time later, when he came back to marry her, he turned aside to look at the lion's carcass, and in it he saw a swarm of bees and some honey. He scooped out the honey with his hands and ate as he went along, which is a violation of his Nazirite vows. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some, and they too ate it, but he did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Now his father went down to see the woman, and there Samson held a feast, as was customary for young men. When the people saw him, they chose 30 men to be his companions. Let me tell you a riddle, Samson said to them. If you can give me the answer within the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. Tell us your riddle, they said. Let's hear it. He replied, out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. For 3 days they could not give the answer. On the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to steal our property? Then Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, you hate me. You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. I haven't even explained it to my father or mother, he replied, so why should I explain it to you? She cried the whole 7 days of the feast, so on the 7th day he finally told her because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. Before sunset on the 7th day, the men of the town said to him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Samson said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those who explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's home, and Samson's wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast. Judges 15, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8. Later on, at the time of wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat and went to visit his wife. He said, I'm going to my wife's room, but her father would not let him go in. I was so sure you hated her, he said, that I gave her to your companion. Isn't her younger sister more attractive? Take her instead. Samson said to them, this time I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them. So he went out and caught 300 foxes and tied them tail to tail in pairs. He then fastened a torch to every pair of tails, lit the torches, and let the foxes loose in the standing grain of the Philistines. He burned up the shocks and standing grain together with the vineyards and olive groves. When the Philistines asked who did this, they were told Samson, the Timnite's son-in-law, because his wife was given to his companion. So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. Samson said to them, since you have acted like this, I swear that I won't stop until I get my revenge on you. He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. Then he went down and stayed in a cave in the rock of Edom. So what we see here in this story is that the Philistines actually threatened Samson's wife-to-be and her father with death if they did not provide the answer to Samson's riddle that they couldn't solve. And so, because she wanted her and her father to live, his wife-to-be got the answer to the riddle from Samson, told it to the Philistines so that they could solve the riddle and make Samson indebted to him. And then they married her off to someone else, even though she was supposed to be married to Samson. And then, after Samson burned down their fields and their vineyards and their olive groves in response, they decided to kill his wife-to-be and her father anyway. So get that from the woman's perspective, from Samson's bride-to-be's perspective. She was told that if she didn't comply with their request to get the answer to the riddle from Samson, they would kill her and her father. She did exactly as they asked, but they ended up killing her and her father anyway. That's just like in Dragon Ball Z, when Frieza took Vegeta captive when he was a small child, and Frieza told Vegeta that if he didn't do everything that he asked Vegeta to do, that he would kill his father and destroy the planet that the Saiyans lived on. And just like in the story of Samson, Vegeta did everything that Frieza asked, but Frieza ended up not only killing his father anyway, but Frieza ended up destroying the entire planet as well. That's why I say that when you look at the Philistines in this particular account, their cruelty and evil is literally just like Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. It's literally a parallel. The difference is that the Philistine account actually happened. Dragon Ball Z is a science fiction cartoon. Now, the last thing I want to point out about Darryl Cooper is he claims that Samson was Delilah's abusive foreign husband, and this is simply not the case. When you go to Judges chapter 16, verses 4 through 22, which is every bit of information we have about Delilah, this is what you read. Sometime later, he, Samson, fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." Samson answered her, "If anyone ties me with fresh 7 bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man." Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him with them. With men hidden in the room, she called out to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string snaps when it comes close to a flame. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made a fool of me. You lied to me. Come now, tell me how you can be tied." He said, "If anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then, with men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the ropes off his arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, "All this time you've been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me how you can be tied." He replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I'll become as weak as any other man." So, while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into the fabric, and tightened it with the pin. Again she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke from his sleep and pulled the pin in the loom with the fabric. She said to him, "How can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time you have made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength." With such nagging she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more, he has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. After putting him to sleep on her lap, she called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke from his sleep and thought, "I'll go out as before and shake myself free," but he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now, a lot of people look at Samson's head being shaved, taking away all his strength, as something silly. But what most people don't realize is that prior to this, Samson had already violated 2 of his 3 Nazirite vows. So by the time his hair got shaved, he had violated all the vows, and that's why his strength left him. But then, at the end of this account, you see the hair on his head begins to grow back, which symbolizes that God's covenant with him was restored, and basically God was going to give him his strength back when the time came, which ultimately came at Samson's death. But notice how Delilah, it says that she was a woman that Samson was in love with, but it never says he was married to her, and it never says she loved him back. In fact, she was willing to betray him for silver. Lots and lots of silver. Now, Samson's wife betraying him made sense because the Philistines were threatening her and her father with death if she didn't, but they weren't threatening Delilah with death. They just said, "Hey, I'll give you some money if you do this for us," and she took it. So yeah, to claim that Delilah was married to Samson is a complete lie. She was just some floozy that Samson had the hots for, and she weaponized that to her advantage. So when Darryl Cooper comes out and says that Delilah is someone that we should honor because she was fighting for the Philistines, her people, while they were under Israeli captivity, and she was being oppressed by her foreign husband Samson, who was abusive, all of this is a complete and utter lie if you read Judges chapter 13 through 16. Now, if you go down into the comments section, you'll see that Darryl Cooper says, "People responding as if I don't know I'm wrong. The above is an admission, not a boast." Well, your admission is not based in reality, Darryl Cooper. Everything you said about Delilah and the Philistines and Samson is completely and utterly wrong, and you're not considering the bigger picture with Rahab. She was not betraying the people of God. She was betraying the people that God was about to judge. Basically, God gave her a way out of the judgment of her people that was about to happen. And she took that opportunity because she honored God above her own people. So everything you have to say in your post is wrong. Now, if the point of your post was to troll people and get engagement, well, I guess congratulations, you did it. Because otherwise, if you were serious about everything you said is wrong and a lie. Well, folks, that's all I have for you. If you liked what you saw in this video and you are a fan of my content, but you do not like the censorship that YouTube engages in, there are two YouTube alternatives in particular that you should follow me on. The first one is Rumble, which is a video sharing site that is owned by Donald Trump's media company, which kind of sort of in a way makes it Donald Trump's YouTube alternative. And this site is a great place for content as a content creator. I not only back up my videos here, and not only do some of my videos here get way more views than they do over on YouTube, but I also do my live shows on here when I go live, whether that be the TTOR show or the God TV radio podcast. I haven't done a live stream in a while, but I plan on doing one soon if I haven't done one already by the time you see this. And since that is the case, you should definitely tune in to my Rumble account when I go live, because that's where you can find me when I do the live shows for the TTOR show and God TV radio. Plus, Rumble has way more freedom of speech than YouTube does. YouTube, there are certain topics you cannot talk about openly and honestly without getting your channel or individual videos taken down. Rumble, you can talk about those topics and nothing will happen to you. So, if you are interested in that and you want to see my live shows when they're live, then I would encourage you to subscribe to my Rumble channel, check out my Rumble videos, share them far and wide. The other alternative you should check out is Quarter, which is an open source alt-tech alternative to YouTube that I started back in May of 2022. So we're going on 3 years with this website. And it is very feature-rich and functional in terms of a comparison to YouTube. You have full HD video upload capacity, including 4K, live streaming, you have free restreaming, you have public playlists, easy-to-use comment moderation system, but you also have stuff that you don't get on YouTube, such as the ability to upload audio files to your channel instead of videos. You can upload pictures instead of videos. You can create articles, which is like a blog feature where you can make posts and you can not only embed Quarter videos in these posts, you can embed videos from basically any site on the internet that allows you to embed videos in any way, shape, or form. You can also post pictures in the comments section, as well as leaving regular comments. You can post pictures in the live chats on live streams. There's also Quarter Bucks, which is an insight currency that you get by getting views on your videos. And once you get enough Quarter Bucks, you can promote your whole channel or individual videos on the front page of the website. And there's video chat rooms that you can create, which is basically an open source version of Google Hangout, except for you can also live stream to your channel from these rooms. And when it comes to freedom of speech, Quarter, which is run by me, is even better than Rumble is in terms of freedom of speech, because Rumble has a hate speech policy that specifically targets bigotry against Jews, but I have no such policy on Quarter because that kind of speech is legally protected under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. So, as long as you're not uploading terrorism content, and as long as you're not uploading pornography to Quarter, you can post, you can say and do whatever you want on Quarter, because that's how freedom of speech works. Hopefully, I will see you on Quarter, and I will see you in the next video.